While your day is winding down, they're just getting started. This is South Coast Tonight with Chris McCarthy and Marcus Farrow. They've got you covered on all the news of the day, from local issues to politics on both sides of the aisle. This is the place where the movers and shakers come to be heard, to listen, and where they're held accountable. This is South Coast Tonight on WBSM.
Hey, welcome back to the show. Sheriff-elect Paul Heroux has decided graciously to stay with us for another hour here in studio, talk about his transition plans, and talk about and take your calls at 508-996-0500 if you want to call in, or take your app chat messages. We've gotten a lot of app chat messages in. That's how people want to communicate today. That's fine too. So let us know if you have any questions for Sheriff-elect Heroux. I want to continue the immigration conversation a little bit. Because, you'd said it's not a priority of yours.
Well, let me be clear about what it's not a priority. That's not saying it's not important, okay? Because I did say it's not my priority, but I don't want that to be confused with me saying it's not important. It is important, but it's not where I'm going to spend a lot of my political capital. It's not where I'm going to really direct a lot of my efforts because, again, my border is with Rhode Island, not Mexico.
Are you going to keep the ICE detention facility closed? If leadership changes hands, Secretary Mayorkas may be inclined to award an ICE contract to the Bristol County House of Correction. Would you be seeking one, or would you refuse one if you got one?
I'm not going to do either seek it or necessarily refuse it. I would ask what's in it for us.
Okay.
Are we going to financially benefit from this? Are we going to get additional training for this? Are they going to give us extra staff for it? I mean, what's in it for us?
Sure.
It's, my job is not to do the federal government's job. Mm-hmm. But if there is something in it for us, one of the things that some folks on my campaign team told me about was that the state auditor looked at this, and hopefully I'm remembering things correctly. I could be remembering things wrong. But in Bristol County, we were only getting, I think it was something $90 or $100 per person per day for the ICE to be an ICE detainee, but it was actually costing us $140-ish.
Okay,
and I could be, so I might have those numbers incorrect, but basically we were actually losing money on it, not necessarily gaining. So again, I'm repeating myself. If I would ask, what's in it for us? Like, what do we get out of this? And, because I don't want to be doing their job, and I certainly don't want to cost the county money.
So we're speaking with Sheriff-elect Paul Heroux. We're taking your calls or your app chat messages, 508-996-0500. So you talked about Beacon Hill earlier. Mm-hmm. You were in Beacon Hill for like 8 or so years. 5 years.
Yep,
sorry,
5 years. 2.5 terms. I was elected to 3 terms, but served 2.5.
So you served in Beacon Hill for a while. You had support from some of your former colleagues in Beacon Hill. I remember Tony Cabral had a speech with you in New Bedford. Dinah DeZoglio, who's now the auditor-elect, had called you an independent voice in the legislature. Are you going to use your relationship with Beacon Hill to advocate for better funding for some of the stuff that you want to do, or just for the operation of the correction system more broadly?
The short answer is yes, but then I have to look at what exactly am I going to be advocating for. I mean, as somebody who's in the role of running the organization and you're dependent upon state funding, you're always going to ask for more funding because then you can do more things, pay people better, hire more people, do more programming. So the short answer is yes, but then again, getting inside, figuring out what do we need to fund better, then I can go up to Beacon Hill with an agenda. Like a wish list of things. Dinah DeZoglio, she and I actually came in together as freshman state representatives in 2013, and Tony Cabral, for 4 years of my 5 years up there, I served on his bond committee. Yeah.
Oh, the bond committee. He was chair.
Yeah, he was the chair of the bond committee, and so I served on that for 2 of his. Actually, that was one that when I was assigned to that as a freshman, I was like, oh my God, that's going to be boring.
Yeah.
Wow, that was a great committee to be on.
Committee,
it was really important because I learned about all the different state departments, like Commonwealth departments, Massachusetts departments, not to be confused with the federal State Department, but that actually, I really liked it. And Tony was, I think he and I were the only 2 people who were consistently there every single time. It wasn't an exciting committee, but wow, it was a really useful one. I learned a lot about state government, and, it was, I just really liked it. Yeah, it was.
So we're speaking with Sheriff-elect Paul Heroux. We're taking your calls and app chat messages as well if you want to ask him a question. So I guess the next question is, there's a lot of talk about, like you said, housing, healthcare, and a job was the points that you hit on. When you were campaigning, there was a lot of talk about measuring the rate of recidivism, which is the rate in which people reoffend basically and end up back in the correction system after they're released. You want to measure that. That's something that you want to do, and you said you're going to be able to do it very easily. Can you explain, how, more or less?
Yeah. The first thing we have to do is define it, and our definition doesn't have to be consistent with all the other county jails, because I want to know what we're doing here. So there's a couple different ways you can define it. You can define it as somebody who is rearrested and, who leaves the jail, who was previously sentenced but leaves the jail and then is rearrested. But then you can also look at it if you were resentenced. Not resentenced, reconvicted and then resentenced. That's another one. So you can just look if you were readmitted. Just if you're reincarcerated, that could be another definition of it. So the first thing is doing that. The second thing is then looking at over what period of time.
Sure.
Starting at whatever year it is we want to look at. We look at all the inmates that left the facility, and then how many came back into our facility, or how many were rearrested, or how many were resentenced, and you have to go to the BOP for that. Is board of probation. So and that's. All the data is there. It's doing data extracts with the IT departments and then putting it on an Excel spreadsheet and sorting it out. I did this when I was 32 years old working in Philadelphia at the Philadelphia jail system, which is a system 20 times larger than Bristol County. So it's something that, just measuring the basic rate of recidivism for Bristol County, there's a lot of little moving pieces in it, but it's not rocket science. I mean, it's operational definitions, getting the information out, and then just putting it down. It's basically a descriptive statistic. We're just describing how many people were here and then how many people came back in, and you can define that different ways. The more complicated task is looking at, and it's still achievable, but it's looking at which programs work and which ones don't work. Looking at, again, the drug treatment programs, the anger management programs, the GED programs. What are the rates of recidivism for people that participate in those? That's more complicated because then you have to have a control group. This is where you get a little bit, kind of technocratic and wonky, but this is just modern government administration. This is, is what you need to do. It's, a lot of people, the sheriff, is going to round them up and, arrest people and hold, stick it to the illegal immigrants for coming here illegally. All that's really emotional, but the real management is coming into this technocratic stuff. So, and that's where you have a treatment group and a control group, and then you're comparing apples to apples, and then you look to see whether or not the rate. Again, you define what recidivism means. It can be defined a lot of different ways, and it doesn't have to be consistent with other jails. It's not important. It's just what are we doing here, and then just defining that.
So one of the conversations. Well, when Sheriff Hodgson had taken over, he famously got rid of televisions and then later got rid of weights. There was some conversations about the meal apportionments, but I guess there's been speculation that you might bring those amenities or back to the House of Correction for inmates. Will there? I guess the question is: will there be additional recreational amenities such as televisions, weight sets, etc., available for inmates at the Bristol County House of Corrections when you take over?
It's funny. I haven't said one way or the other what I'm going to do on this, and so it's funny that you say the speculation on it because I haven't said which direction I would go in on that because quite honestly, I don't know. It would be a conversation I have with the security staff and also other sheriffs looking at the utility of that. Most of the people that are there are awaiting trial. They haven't been sentenced for anything. And so, treating them like a criminal when they are awaiting trial is inappropriate. And so they're awaiting trial probably because they haven't been able to post bail, or maybe sometimes they have a offense, a charge where they, they're not going to be allowed to post bail. It's a dangerousness issue. So, but I haven't commented on that. But that's a conversation I would have with security staff and with other sheriffs, and say, okay, what are the rest? You're looking to see what works in other places. When I was working in DOC and when I was working in Philadelphia jail system, those things were present. And, it's, sometimes they are used as pacifiers, to kind of, keep, if a bored inmate is a problem inmate. An inmate is bored is a problem, because an inmate, if they're bored, they're not being rehabilitated. Mm-hmm. And if they're bored, they can also learn about new criminal endeavors. If they're bored, they learn new ways to do things wrong. So it's just, I don't want to see bored inmates. I mean, that's not, whether you're awaiting trial or you're criminally sentenced, for a misdemeanor, 2.5 years to less on some felonies, as you know. But that's, like I said, rumors are endemic in politics.
Most people stay in there 6 months, right?
Yeah, exactly. They're not there a long time. You're there for stupid stuff. For most people.
For the most part, yeah. Yeah, it can get more serious, but most likely it's relatively innocuous. We're here with Sheriff-elect Heroux. If you have any questions, you can call it 508-996-0500. That's how you can get on the program. I'm going to take a little bit of an early break, and then we've got I'm going to have some more questions for you. So let's take a break. We'll be right back.
Sounds good.
Download the
on the app chat. If you want to app chat Sheriff-elect Heroux, you can on the WBSM app chat. If you want to call, you can at 508-996-0500. Seems like everybody prefers the app chat method today. But people within the facility all say you have said you want to eliminate the canines. So the K-9 unit, the Bristol County House of Correction, what she's saying is people in the facility said that you want to eliminate canines. Is that true?
I haven't said one way or the other. So rumors are endemic in this business. And, like we were saying that before.
That's how I get by.
Yeah, I mean, rumors are people they just make stuff up all the time. Just make it up. I don't know. I heard this. Where'd you hear that from? I don't know. Somebody just thought it, So
sure.
I haven't said one way or the other. I'd like to, again, go in, assess, find out what the utility is. I was talking to... I was talking to a gentleman who actually works for the Mass Department of Correction. And, he's a assistant superintendent at one of the facilities. I don't want to say which one. I just want to identify him. But we were just talking over the weekend, and he was telling me how in one particular jail they use the canines for, a threat. They use the canines to threaten the inmates. Hey, get under control, or we're going to bring the dogs in, and the dogs are going to bite you.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not going to happen under me. That's not going to happen. So we're not going to use the dogs to threaten inmates, because that's, I think that's cruel and inhumane.
The dogs were involved. Were also the subject of the
May 1st, 2020.
Yeah, they were. Right. They played a big role in that. So anybody that knows my background, just Google search Paul Heroux dog cancer. You'll find where I am with dogs. I have a deep love and appreciation for dogs. But we're not going to use dogs as a tool of a threat to inmates. I don't find that to be, I don't even think that's constitutional. I think that's, possibly an Eighth Amendment violation, because it's, the psychological torture you're doing to somebody is a bit extreme, in the lasting damage of it, somebody. I've been bit 9 times by dogs, by the way. Yeah.
Just as a side note, I have a dog myself, I've been bit 9 times. I'll take a dog bite over a bee sting any day. Bee stings are much worse. I've been bitten in the face by a dog. I've been bitten, mauled on by, my leg. But like I said, though, we're not going to use a dog as a weapon of intimidation or a weapon of, threat to, I just think that's inappropriate.
So we got more app chat messages here, but we got calls on the line at 508-996-0500. That's how you can get on if you want to ask the sheriff-elect a question. Good evening, you're live.
Yeah, I'd like to ask the sheriff-elect a question.
Sure.
Is he familiar with the Are You OK program?
Yes, I am familiar with that program. And,
okay.
That's when a lot of people have asked me if I'm going to be cutting it, and I have not said I'm going to cut it. As I was telling Marcus during one of the breaks we've had, if I wanted to get away from a program, I wouldn't just cut the program and leave people who are dependent upon that program out in the cold. I wouldn't do that. So the short answer is no, I'm not cutting that. The longer answer is, if I wanted to move away from that, I would find a new home for it with some other group in the community.
You would ensure its continuity.
Exactly. I would ensure its continuity. Okay. So the short answer is no, I'm not cutting it. But if at some point I want to get away from that, then I'll find a new home. So people continue to get that service. They just might not get it from the Bristol County Sheriff's Office. But I hope that answers and puts your mind at ease about that.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks for the call. 508-996-0500. Good evening. You're live with the sheriff-elect.
Hi. Congratulations. My in particular is concerning food. You're not going to discipline anybody, are you, by using food, weaponizing food, bare minimum daily requirement, calorie counts, and all that. That's not your gig, is it?
No, it's not. So let's talk about food. Okay, so I have background in psychology and neuroscience. That was my bachelor's degree, and one of the things, I'm going to talk about this gentleman named Adrian Rain. This is where I'm kind of called a little bit of a technocrat and an academic. But let's talk about Adrian Rain. Adrian Rain used to be a professor at the University of Southern California, and then he went over to the University of Pennsylvania. Just by coincidence, I happened to be at both those institutions, when I got my bachelor's at one and master's in criminology at the other. One of the things he looked at is diets and impulse control and brain development. And he did some research in the Mauritius Island, just off the east coast of Africa. And so he basically gave, it was a controlled experiment. It was rare to do something like this, but what he looked at was giving kids a diet rich in omega-3 fatty acids versus a control group of kids who didn't get they continued on with the same diet they had always been eating. Yeah. And they looked at it over the course of a long period of time. They looked at it over the course of years. And they looked at the behavioral outcomes. And the kids who got the diet rich in omega-3 fatty acids were much better with impulse control, because we know that the brain development continues on over the course of time, basically up until you're about your mid-20s. And we have a lot of people who are in jail, they're very young. So it's in our interest to give that, and for a lot of reasons, it's in our interest to make sure that they have a proper, healthy diet, not a diet that's just sticking it to you because you want to make life miserable, and if you don't like it, don't come back. That's not that's not a crime prevention strategy. A real crime prevention strategy is to look at the data and say, how can we give them a proper nutritional diet? Now, I'm not talking about, we're going to order from D'Angelo all the time, and we're going to get, pizza in there. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about, having, beef stroganoff or,
sure.
I'm talking about having an appropriate diet for brain development. So that's one aspect of it. And that's in our interest. Another aspect is proper, when you teach people proper nutrition, hopefully they'll continue on with that when they get back into society. And that's part of discharge planning, is setting people up for success. Because again, if you have a good diet, it does affect your impulse control. It affects your behavior. It affects your mood. And that's something that if we can teach people that, how to properly take care of themselves, that'll translate into better crime outcomes, with less crime. We know this is true. The research has been done. Now it's time to put that research into practice. That's the kind of bridging the gap between the academic world and the world of practice. It's finding out ways we can make people better off. So that would be my approach. And that sounds kind of technocratic and sort of academic, but
well, it does sound that way, but it's not. Well, I agree with you 100%. I think you've looked into this. You probably got so much knowledge on it, you could take the whole hour. But seriously, what you just said to me is really astounding. It's almost like the answers are there. We just got to look, and I think you found an area to look into. Yeah. And I wish you success. And I'd just like to say, though, if you do have trouble with some particular pods, and you find out who the person is, and maybe they're not political, maybe they just need a screening for bipolar, and they'll calm down. And with a good diet, you won't have any uprisings from that particular individual. Yeah. I really think you should consider administering tests. Very cheap, very easy to do. It changed my life for the better. And it's just a simple, maybe a one-on-one with a counselor or whatever. And anybody that is drawing your attention or your staff's attention, I would check them for bipolar. I think they come in with the bipolar, a lot of them. I think that some of the criminal things that they do is sometimes to get into jail, use jail as a hotel because they have bipolar and they can't critically think or really problem solve anything in their own lives because of a very simple thing, bipolar.
Sir, thanks for the call. We appreciate it. Yeah. I've had, when I was practicing, I had a number of clients tell me that they're more comfortable incarcerated because of the routine it gives them. Mm-hmm. So one person as young as in their early 20s, which to me was incredibly sad. How do you make that environment more transitionable from being in the House of Correction to being out there in the outside world and being able to function properly. I shouldn't say function properly, but,
be successful.
Be successful.
Yeah. So it's step down planning is what we basically call it. When I was working at the DOC, whenever we had somebody who was being released from maximum security to the street, there was a panic. How the hell did that happen was what the question of the day was. How did this person go from, maximum security, or isolation being released to the street? How did they slip through the cracks? Because let me tell you, they are not ready for it. That transition is they're going to lash out. They're going to end up right back inside. So it's basically just having a proper step down plan going on. I don't know what that looks like inside Bristol County right now. Maybe it's being done right. Maybe there's room for improvement. I don't know, but it is something I'm going to look at though.
So we're speaking with Sheriff-elect Paul Heroux. We're taking your calls at 508-996-0500. We're taking your app chat messages. We've gotten a few app chat messages as well. So I guess this is more of the conversation about the TVs and weights in the House of Correction. But one said inmates have tablets, no need for individual TVs. I don't know that inmates have tablets there. Do you?
I've not heard that before, but do they? I don't know. I mean, I just.
It's one of those things you're going to have to you're going to have to get the landscape of what exactly is available and what could or should be available to them after, based on, whatever information that you have. So that was from William in New Bedford. Thank you for messaging us, William. That's another one from Dartmouth. Are you aware of the assault on correction officer that took place with weights at MCI Shirley earlier this year? So I guess that's another concern about correction officer safety with with weights being present.
Okay, so by that logic, I know what somebody's saying, and I am aware of that assault. By that logic, if one person misused the weights, does that mean we should get rid of all weights everywhere? By that logic, if one person misuses a gun, does that mean we should get rid of guns everywhere? Sure. By that logic, if somebody abuses welfare, should we get rid of welfare everywhere?
Yeah.
If somebody misuses alcohol, should we get rid of all alcohol? So I don't like using that logic of, well, it happened one time over here, so should we then, is it reason for concern? Of course there's a reason for concern, but it doesn't mean we make a decision based on a case sample of one.
Yeah.
We need, to look at like a broader, context of what these things go on. So like, when people, what happened over here, somebody could do it over here. Well, yeah, that's right. And somebody abused a gun over here. So should we get rid of all the guns?
Yeah.
I think all the conservatives are going to say no. If somebody abused welfare, should we get rid of all welfare? I think all the liberals are going to say no.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of making general sweeping, categorizations by that. But,
because something unfortunate happened here with an amenity that the inmates use, and not all the inmates, and in fact, the overwhelming majority of inmates haven't used it in that way. That doesn't mean you should punish them at the expense of this one person's, or because of this one person's actions. So, the next question I'm going to have is about suicides at the Bristol County House of Correction. It became a major issue towards the end of the election, particularly with the incident of Adam Howe, and then it was revealed by Ben Burke in the Public's radio that there was another woman that same night that tried to kill herself but was unsuccessful. Tried to hang herself. What do you have in mind? Any suicide protocols that you want to do that you don't think the sheriff's department is doing? What are you going to change to prevent suicides from happening at the apparent frequency that they happen at Bristol County House of Correction?
Well, I'm glad you identified as apparent frequency, because suicides happen everywhere. They do. Yeah. The problem is they happen at a disproportionately higher rate in Bristol County right now.
Sure.
And the old number was 25% of the. It was over a period of time. I forgot the number.
Like
of years.
2006 to 2017 or 18.
Yes, 2017.
Yeah.
So there was. We had 25% of the suicides in the state, but then Arthur Hirsch and Eleanor Bianchi, if I pronounced it right, they
at New Bedford Light.
Yep. They looked at this and they actually found that it went up from 25% to 33% in the years afterwards.
Yep.
So we have 13% of the state inmates in jails, but then we have 33% of the, I think it was 33, 34, 35, something of that magnitude, of the suicides. So suicides are, a really serious issue. They happen both inside jail and outside jail. And so, again, I'm glad you qualified that as, at the frequency, at the rate, because I've never claimed that I'll be able to stop them from happening altogether. Of course, that's going to be the goal. Day one, I want to meet with staff, the intake, find out how are they classifying people? What are you doing? Because I have my own basic understanding of it, and they might satisfy that basic understanding, but that's just day one. But then at sometime very near in the future, it's also bringing in an outside group, maybe having the Department of Correction come in and do an audit of our practice, because the DOC have different standards than ours. There are, the DOC standards, as I understand, they are a lot higher than the standards in the jails, because it's just they're run differently. And so having the DOC coming and doing an audit and finding out where we might be able to improve, that's important. Bringing in some outside consultants, outside vendors who specialize in this, even academics who work with a lot of different jails all over the country. Some people say, oh my God, they're academics. Why would you bring them in? Because what their job is to do is on a case-by-case basis work with the institutions. Sure. And then, write up, data and reports on, large, patterns and trends, look at best practices, measure what works. That's why you work with academics. They serve a role. So there's a lot of different things that, I can do on my own, it's limited, but then bring in the DOC, look at and then bring in another layer is, the people that specialize in this. This is where, the Cummins and I, we had a difference of opinion. I think it was a difference in the way we approach it. My approach is that if we say we're doing everything we can, we're never going to get better. Yeah. And that's what, Sheriff Hodgson said. Sheriff Hodgson would say, yeah, we're doing everything we can. We're doing everything we're supposed to. We're running a top-notch organization. If that's the attitude, then you're never going to improve. You have to be somewhat self-critical. You have to always be looking to improve yourself and be better. You have to be able to say, be able to have an ego. This is not a dig on him, but it's a dig on anybody who is, in a management position. But you have to have an ego strong enough to say, maybe I'm not doing the best job I could. Right. Maybe we can do better. And, and you can't have a fragile ego and say, no, we can't possibly do better. We're doing as good as we can. So, I think that's important. Be self-critical.
So we're speaking with Sheriff-elect Paul Heroux. We're taking your messages on the WBSM app chat. We're also taking your calls at 508-996-0500. That's how you can get in the program. I don't really want to relitigate the campaign. It's over. I guess, want to just address this thing that's been frankly annoying me because Republicans are all of a sudden campaign finance reformists.
I love that.
My thing is that everybody complaining about the money that's coming to the race, they don't, unbeknownst to them, have voted for it their entire lives. They voted for these exact policies their entire lives and will continue to do so. But what do you have to say about the money that came in behind you in your campaign against Sheriff Hodgson? There was about $450,000, I guess, total, something like that.
I've got a lot of things to say about this. First of all, number one, Republicans and conservatives, you asked for it. Mm-hmm. When you pushed for Citizens United, you got exactly what you asked for, and this is what the consequence of Citizens United is. It's that outside money. That's number one. Number two, Sheriff Hodgson also asked for this. He kind of called this attention on himself when he became a national figure, going on One American Network and Newsmax and Fox News. Sure. When he did that, espousing the policies he espoused, which I'm not judging those right now, those brought him a lot of attention on both sides. It made him very popular, but also it made him very hated. Yeah. And so when
Joe Arpaio is the best comparison I can bring, and I said that early in the race that this was very similar to the Joe Arpaio race.
And basically, but he brought that on himself. Yeah. When I ran for mayor, I didn't get all this money from outside support. I was outspent, I think, almost every time. Maybe I don't know every time, but it was certainly in my first race. In fact, in my first race for mayor, Charlie Baker had a political action committee, and he went after me there. He went after me in my second race, in my third race, and then this one, actually, he's 0-4 with me. So that dark money went against me, and I had no outside money helping me on my race for mayor. Nobody cared. Okay,
Yeah.
so because the opponents that I had were not high-profile opponents.
Yeah.
So it's Hodgson's own policies that brought this high-profile money coming in from outside. So that's number two. He brought this on himself. Number three is that Charlie Baker also supported Hodgson with six figures.
Yeah.
Not as much as the outside group supported me, but Hodgson started.
It made spending, based on the reporting in the Bedford Light, spending between you and Hodgson was fairly close based on the total of spending, because Hodgson started off with about
290.
Yeah,
He started. So in January, Hodgson started off with 290,000, and the most recent time I've looked at OCPF, it was maybe a week or two ago, he had raised about $215,000 this year. I started off with $30 in a website. I started with 30, and I raised about 170 something, maybe less than 175,000. So he raised more than me this year, and he started with a lot more than me. Yeah. So he did have a lot more money. Now he didn't take in as many donations. I took in a lot more donations than he did. I had smaller donors and a lot greater in number, but he took in more money. So, so some people, actually, there's one person that we talked about earlier. She said, Paul, the only reason you won this race, she put this on my Facebook page, the only reason you won this race is because the outside groups bought it for you. To which I would respond, the only reason I won this race is because Hodgson created the policies that led to that money coming in.
Yeah.
So the only reason I won this, if any one of my campaign elements had been missing, if I didn't personally knock on 12,000 doors, I would have lost this race.
Yeah.
If my campaign volunteers were not out holding signs at busy intersections, I would have lost this race.
Yeah.
If my campaign volunteers weren't knocking on doors, if they weren't holding house parties for me, if they weren't doing their own phone banking, if Hodgson didn't take that position on the border wall, I might have lost this race. It might have that was only won by 2,500 votes or so. That there might have been 2,500 people out of 180,000 that cast a vote that were outraged by that. So any one of those things could have changed the outcome.
Sure. So, it was both hard work and collective action, essentially, whether it be from people in outside groups that wanted Sheriff Hodgson out of office, and your own hard work and your campaign's hard work that got you elected.
It was no one thing. It was all of those things. Now, when I ran for mayor, and won, it was like I won with such huge margins that, you could have said, you could have done away with this. If I had done any one thing differently, I would have likely lost. Just like if Hodgson had also not been so controversial, I would have lost.
Yeah.
So he actually brought this on himself. Now that's his, that's his right as an elected official to pursue the policy issues that he did, to campaign on the things.
Yeah, I think he believed in the stuff he was saying.
Does,
yeah. So,
but any one of those. So, like I said, if Hodgson wasn't such a controversial figure, I would have lost. So any one of these things were different. I mean, if the weather had been different, I might, 2,500 votes out of 180,000. That's not a lot of votes. It's So when they say, "Oh, that's the only reason you won this," it's actually any one of those variables. If we'd taken out any one of those, I would have probably lost. It could have gone the other way.
508-996-0500. Take a quick break. We'll be right back.
1420 WBSM can now be heard on 99.5 FM. You never know who will call in to South Coast tonight. But they want to hear from you most of all. Call 508-996-0500. Or use the WBSM app to send an app chat text message or leave voicemail.
Hey, welcome back. Let's go to the phones. Good evening. You're live with the Sheriff-elect.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Hey, Shawneen.
I would like to say congratulations to Sheriff-elect, and I like everything that you're talking about, and I think you're going to do very well, and I'm excited to see the outcome.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, and I appreciate your support. It's I've got a 6-year term, and it's going to be a lot of work, but this is changing the direction of an aircraft carrier, not a little little jet ski. It takes time to change that.
I got 6 years at least.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I may only be a one-term sheriff. If I can achieve the things I campaigned on in one term, then I'll probably not run for a second term, but if I need that second term because we're kind of mid-progress, then maybe I'll go for it. But I don't want to be mayor for life, and I'm not going to be sheriff for life. I don't think it's healthy, and, we'll turn it over to somebody else. But the things that I campaigned on, I'm serious about. They're achievable. They're things that can make a difference, and these are things that people trusted me to do, and I'm going to push forward on them.
And I like the way you look at things, and then we do need change. So I'm rooting for you.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay, good night.
So that's 508-996-0500, or you can message us on the app chat.
There's a little bit of a potential flaw in my own logic, though. If somebody says, well, you haven't achieved these things in your first term, why should you get a second term? And it's all about the progress that we make, though.
Don't campaign against yourself. Well, I guess it'll be 6 years from now.
Yeah, well, somebody might still use that against me in 6 years from now. But like I said, it's
No, the thing is you campaigned on changing things, and you got to go in and see how it is, and it might take a while. The office has been under the same, under Sheriff Hodgson for 25 years. You may want to do things differently, and that may take a while.
I'm always honest with myself.
Or you might have accomplished what you need to accomplish and found that there might be more to do. Either way,
people will see a lot of progress in, just especially with just the measuring of things. We're going to measure recidivism. It's going to happen. People, we're going to have it. I'm going to define it, and people might say, "Oh, I don't like that definition." Okay, fine. Well, that's the definition we're using. There's a lot of different ways to define recidivism, but we will do that. You're going to see a lot more advocacy on discharge planning, housing, healthcare, and a job. A lot more effort on increasing the resources being directed to rehabilitation programs. Measuring the outcomes of those, publishing the not only what works but what doesn't work. If something doesn't work, I want the public to know about that. Even if it's a new program I bring on and the program isn't working, I'm going to let the public know about that, but then I'm going to tell them what we're doing about it. That's government at its finest.
So, I do want to ask you a question just a little bit about what's going on in Attleboro. You have me now reading the Sun Chronicle more than I probably ever did. How long, when do you plan on stepping down from your role as mayor of Attleboro?
As soon as the election results are finalized, which will be, so I thought I was going to be doing that Wednesday last week, but then the Governor's Council hasn't certified the election results yet. They have to vote on those. So with a very small margin of victory of 2,500 votes ish, 2,500 ish, maybe even less than that. I would be foolish to submit a resignation before the results are final.
Sure.
So I'm waiting for that to happen. That should happen before the 30th. So basically tomorrow or the day after.
Okay.
It might even happen today on the 28th. I'm not really sure. But once those are done, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to submit a letter of resignation to the city clerk effective January 3rd. Mm-hmm. So that way the city council can then pick a date for a special election. And there's been a little bit of controversy about when the special election should have. The city charter says basically right away, forthwith, have it right away without delay. Mm-hmm. There were some people who wanted to push the special election back until as far as April. And there were a couple different reasons why people wanted to do that. And the Election Commission even first recommended that, but after looking at the city charter a little bit more closely, they said, oh, that's not what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to do it right away. We're not supposed to push it back to avoid a second special election. There are some people who still want to see a special election be held later. And I'm going to avoid the politics of why that is and what's going on with that. But
there's a similar question that was, I remember, raised in Boston after Marty Walsh had left. They ended up doing the election in the fall, but it's something that I think we're grappling with here because we've got a special election for a city council seat that's been vacated, and another one that might come depending on what Mayor Mitchell's going to do. So actually, I want to talk to you about that. I know that you've had conversations with Council President Heroux. I had Mayor Mitchell on last week. He talked about some of the work that the city office has done with the sheriff's department, the police department has done with the sheriff's department. Are you going to have a conversation with the mayors and town administrators across Bristol County to see how you can best work with them to get the work of the sheriff's office done?
Yeah, well, I'm going to start with the Bristol County Chiefs of Police. So I'll start with them. And, as mayor, I've never worked with Hodgson before. He's never reached out to me. And, I know he works with the police department, but, it was, and I'm not faulting him for that. I'm not taking a dig at him for that or anything, and sure. I don't know what his relationship is with the other 3 cities or the other, the 16 municipalities throughout Bristol County. But I'm going to start with the Bristol County Chiefs of Police, and anybody who wants to talk to me, they can call me. We can talk, but really, I'm running a jail.
Of course, yeah. All right, we're going to take a break, and then we'll be back to finish out the hour with Sheriff-elect Heroux. We'll take your questions as well.
If you want to hear everything,
we can probably fit in a call or two. We've got a few more minutes left with the Sheriff-elect, but Sue from New Bedford. She's saying, basically the good work that the K-9 unit does, to sniff out weapons or drugs and all of that, and said, you say you don't want the sheriff's office to do law enforcement. You didn't say that. You said that there's some law enforcement roles that they can play, and you'll have to you'll have to look at what roles they will play. But you have said before that you do see you do see the possibility for a law enforcement role to continue, which would include keeping the K-9 units, but not for attacking people, but for maybe more essential functions like drug sniffing or bomb sniffing. Yeah,
I mean, people oftentimes put words in my mouth. I guess they're simple minds. Forgive me. I don't appreciate when people put words in my mouth. If you're accidentally misunderstanding something, if you're you just
sure.
That, I can appreciate that, but I just ask people to pay attention a little bit more closely, rather than come in with an agenda trying to blast me and put words in my mouth. So I have never said that we're not going to do law enforcement. I said the main job of a sheriff is to run the county jail, and there is a role to work with law enforcement. That's what I've said. And I'm just going to stand by that. That's what I said. And I'm going to go in, look at what we're doing, and, assess if that actually has a legitimate role or not, but, one thing I said very decisively is we're not going to use our dogs to intimidate or to threaten inmates. I find that to be cruel to both the dogs and the inmates. And, and that's, as sheriff, that'll be my, my prerogative, and that's just how it's going to be. So we're going to have to come up with it. If that's what's going on right now, that will come to a stop. But, there's, other things I'll, go ahead and, look at things like on a case by case basis about what's going on, learn about it. But there are certain things I come in with just, when I was a state rep, there was one state rep who said to me, follow your conscience first, your district second, and your party third, in that order: conscience, district, party.
Yeah.
Similarly, conscience first, always, and then, the district in this case would be, the institution, and then third would be, your party, your ideology. So I put the Democrat ideology after the institution.
Sounds like a whip that said that to you.
No, actually, it was a backbencher who said that to me. Really, it was. It was somebody who was not a committee chair or a vice chair. Tom Coulter. It was the state representative Tom Coulter actually said that to me, and it was a freshman rep. It was back in 2013, and I never forgot it. But he was a backbencher like me.
Oh. So we're speaking with Sheriff-elect Paul Heroux. We've got about a minute left. I do appreciate you coming in studio. I know it's a bit of a drive for you, but there was a lot of important questions asked either through the app chat or through the phone from the audience, and I think you answered them well. We'll talk to you more as your tenure begins and continues.
Yeah. So, well, thanks, Margaret. Thanks for having me on and giving this opportunity to talk to the listeners, and hopefully it also put a lot of minds at ease with people within the jail, and
Sure.
because I know there's a lot of anxiety. Oh my God, he's going to come and just start getting rid of everybody. That's not what I did as mayor, and that's not what I'm going to do now either. I'm going to make some changes. Some things, very small things, will happen immediately. Like I said tonight, if that's going on with the dogs, that'll come to a stop immediately.
Sure.
But there's other things that'll take time to implement, and again, I could cause a lot of disruption to a very dangerous environment if I were to just go in and start making changes immediately.
Okay, so that's about our time. If you're on the line, I'll take your call in the next hour, but Sheriff-elect Heroux, our time is up here. I do appreciate you coming on and answering the questions, so we'll talk to you soon.
All right, thanks, Marcus.
Sounds good.